This is BrianVee at Whywework, and today we are joined by Laura Grantier. How are you doing today, Laura?
I'm great. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing wonderfully well, and I do appreciate you taking the time from your busy life to speak with me today about why we work, and in particular, why you work. Would you, I will link in the bottom of the YouTube page or anywhere else, maybe a little bio about you. You have an um, extensive list of things that it would take many lifetimes for people to experience. So could you give us a little about who you are and in terms of work and just a little introduction about yourself?
Yes. Um, well, I'm a professional clarinetist, and for the last 25 years, I have been a clarinetist in the Navy Band in Washington, D.C. And the the Navy Band is made up of 5 different units. We have 174 sailors total in our command. Um, so we have a concert band, a chorus, a jazz band, a rock band, and a country band. And we have thousands of requests every year. We can never meet the demand of the requests that we receive. But I've participated in 5 inaugural parades. I have participated
So
in a couple.
sorry for those lacking in history. So in your inaugurals, who were they from? So we're talking the most recent.
So let's see, President Clinton, his
Yeah.
second term, President Bush. I did one of his terms. I was pregnant with my daughter when Bush 43 was elected the first time. Um, then President Obama, both of his terms, and President Trump. And it'll be real interesting to see with the presidential election coming up what that inaugural will look like, with all of the I have no idea what that's going to look like.
S-
Normally we have a big parade of bands and, music, and it'll be very interesting to see how that unfolds.
So I've seen, just knowing you um, virtually, because we've done something together, um, some of the videos of your band. You guys are pretty lively. Like you guys are like, what is, I think you mentioned to me one other time, but your mission statement, your purpose, what is the goal of the Navy band?
Well, the goal is to provide, first and foremost, music for the United States Navy. And the Navy is, of course, steeped in tradition like any military service. And along with that tradition comes music, in this case, ceremonial music. So we may provide ceremonial music for the Secretary of the Navy or the Secretary of Defense, or our Chief of Naval Operations, which he would be like the CEO of a big company. But every military service is steeped in a tradition, and each one has their own unique tradition that pertains to their service. So we have different songs that we play that are very important to the Navy, like Navy Blue and Gold is a very important song that we play. Eternal Father Strong to Save is a very important Navy song that we play. So that's the first priority, is to meet the musical needs for the Navy. After that, we provide music for our sailors and citizens as a morale booster. So we will perform live concerts either in the local area or outdoor. In the summers, normally we would be performing outdoor concerts a couple times a week. In the summertime, typically, you could go hear a military band every day of the week in the summer, and it's free. So, but we're not doing that right now, which is sad because I miss doing that. Every year we tour a different region of the United States for about 30 days, 25 to 30 days. And this year we happened to be in the southeastern part of the United States, and we were performing. We went on a tour of concerts, and we took our chorus with us, which was really fun because when we take the chorus with us, we're able to play a bigger variety of music. So we had all of these great medleys. We did an Earth, Wind, and Fire medley. We did a disco medley. I mean, just really good feel good music that makes you want to clap your hands and dance and sing, and lots of patriotic music. And our singers are just world class. They're so amazing. As a matter of fact, our rock band just did a collaboration with Dolly Parton. If you go to the Navy Band's Facebook page, they just did a recording individually. They all recorded their parts and sent them in of Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. And she introduced the song, which I think is so cool. I just thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just how we, and next week is the 4th of July. And so I had to record some music for the 4th of July to send in to our sound engineers, because right now we can't perform together, but we can send in our parts and then they put them all together. So public concerts is next on the list of our mission statement. And then we have education outreach, where we provide educational knowledge to every kind of school, whether it be in elementary, middle school, high school, university level. We are very, very passionate about education outreach. And finally, of course, touring. I talked about touring. And then we do recording projects. So usually every year, one of our performing units will record a CD of music that our commanding officer, our conductor, he will select. And it might have a theme. A lot of times, many music schools at different universities, they look to these military wind ensembles for the latest recordings, maybe new music, or maybe traditional band music that they want to hear a good recording of it. And they will look to these bands for guidance. And so we put out these CDs, and you can't buy them. You can get them you can check them out at your library, or they will be distributed to music educators, but you can't buy them. But we do that as part of our education outreach, recording music and then putting it out to music educators or to the general public through our public libraries.
Laura, what first got you into music? So you obviously are very successful in what you do, but how did you make that first step? I know when I was younger, someone handed me a saxophone. My mom bought one, and I think I had it for 2 weeks, and I gave up from there. How did you pick up your first instrument or sing your first note?
Well, it's really funny. When I was in the 5th grade, I took a listening test. They put us all in the cafeteria in elementary school, and we all took a listening test. And then the 6th grade band director came in and he said, I want you to fill out this little card with your name and what grade you're in, and your first preference of instrument and your second. So I was sitting next to this is in Texas, so we had a football team in elementary school, and we had cheerleaders. So I was sitting next to the most popular cheerleader, and she wrote down flute as her primary instrument, so I wrote down flute. And then she erased it and she wrote down clarinet. So then I erased mine and I put down clarinet. So
you followed
we
along.
took the test, and I was a follower. And so we took the listening test, and my parents got a phone call from the band director, and he said, your daughter scored really high on this music test. Is just listening for pitches, whether they were high or low.
Mm-hmm.
And the band director said, "We think you're deficient in clarinet or saxophone." And my dad said, "Oh, no way is she playing the saxophone. It's too loud, too loud." But little did he know that the clarinet could make
Louder.
all kinds of interesting. Oh, yeah. He used to complain that it sounded like geese flying over our house. So, and then when we would go visit my aunt and uncle in Mississippi, they had a barn behind their house, and my uncle would make me go practice in the barn. So,
It certainly doesn't sound like
because it
geese
was,
now.
yeah, oh, thanks. But, Brian, it wasn't something that I planned to do. I think I started playing clarinet and I was pretty good at it, and I just kept working ahead in my music book. No one told me. If the teacher said, "Okay, stop on page 6," well, I went to page 7 because I was curious about what was on the next page. And if I didn't understand it, I would just kind of play around with it until I could ask the teacher, the next week or whatever. And then we always had weekly tryouts for chairs. And so when I tried out and I made first chair, they gave you a little medal, which I still have. And you had weekly tryouts, but if you didn't get first chair, you had to give the medal up. And I didn't want to give the medal up. So that was my motivation for practicing, because I didn't want to lose my medal. And so I only lost it 1 week. I lost 1 week. I got
You still
challenged. We had
remember.
chair challenges, and I got challenged. I still remember. It was the only week I ever lost my chair. And so I got it back and I kept it for the rest of the year, and I still have that medal. But it was, I'm an only child, and I rode horses for a long time before that until I developed an allergy to horses. And then I couldn't ride anymore because it just, I'd have to take allergy medicine. So music seemed like it just, I happened upon it by accident. I
It's
mean,
funny, Laura,
I,
you're mentioning this, and you and I had a brief discussion. I got to talk with your daughter, and
mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, when you say you started taking lessons and the instructor would give you up to a certain page and you would keep going, was there any pressure at all on your parents, say, "Oh, we're paying for this, you better do this," or was it totally your motivation and you couldn't maybe even explain it or even know why, but it was solely on you to follow through with this no matter where it would have gone?
My parents had to stop me from practicing. I mean, they literally, and this was my band director. I wasn't taking private lessons. I didn't start taking private lessons probably until 8th grade. I started playing when I was 11, and I'm 49. So that's what, 38 years. And so I started playing in 6th grade, but my grandma took me to my first clarinet lesson, I think, when I was in the 8th grade. And I think it was like $15 for a 40-minute lesson. But no one had to tell me to practice. As a matter of fact, my parents would have to stop me from practicing. I would go in the bathroom to practice because acoustically it sounded the best in the bathroom. And I would get frustrated if I couldn't do something right. So they would hear me kind of yelling at myself, or, saying, "Why can't I get this right?" And they would come knock on the door and say, "Don't you think it's time for a break?" But they never said, "Oh, we're paying for this, you need to do more." If anything, they were always, I was so focused.
Trying to
I
pull you
mean, I was
back a little
just,
bit.
yeah, I mean, when we were living in Texas at the time when I started playing clarinet. So when we moved when I was in 7th grade to South Louisiana, and that was a little hard because I came in and the band director put me in the advanced band. There were 2 bands. And so I was in the advanced band with all the 8th graders. And I was already playing at a higher skill level than the 8th graders. And I think that created a little bit of tension. And so when I got ready for high school, which was 9th grade, I decided I wanted to audition for the Louisiana All-State Band, and the high school band director took one look at me and said, "You're not going to make it to the Louisiana All-State Band. You're just a freshman in high school." Well, that was like saying, "Okay, I'll show you." So I so our district auditions were held at LSU, so it was quite competitive. They only took 5 high schoolers out of the Baton Rouge district. So New Orleans and Baton Rouge and Shreveport were kind of the really higher competitive areas. So I made it to the state level. I didn't make all state band that year, but the next year I made first chair all state orchestra for 3 years. So I was like, take that, band director.
I
And
want to
then I
get
started.
into something else, but what did you do in that year where you didn't make it, and then the following year you made it? What do you know of something that you did in particular, or it was just your
Well,
time?
there was a woman there who heard me play, and her daughter played clarinet, and her daughter made the all-state band. And when we were at the district tryouts, her daughter was seated first and I was like second. But her mom came to me and said, you really should take, she's like, do you take clarinet lessons? And I said, not really, just when in the summer when I'm at my grandma's house. And she said, I'm going to give you the name of my daughter's clarinet teacher. And she said, if your parents won't take you to these clarinet lessons, I will. And so I came home with the man's name and phone number, and he was a graduate student at LSU. And so my mom or dad would drive me every Saturday over to LSU. And I think the lessons were like $30 for an hour. And I studied with a graduate student at LSU. And that's when I really learned to develop my basic fundamentals of playing. And so, and I auditioned for everything. I just auditioned for all-state band or different honor bands, solo and ensemble. Every time you audition and you put yourself out there, the more you do it, the better you get. It's, practicing. Every time you have to go play for somebody, it's nerve-wracking and then you have anxiety. But the more you do it, eventually you'll get more comfortable with it. And I enjoyed it. I still, I enjoy opening up an etude book and just playing through an etude. I did that last night. I don't know. I still like it. I still love to play. I miss playing with my colleagues, and I miss making music with them. I don't miss all the traffic, and I don't miss all the rules and the fear of being late or my uniform not looking good. But I miss playing with my colleagues and friends, but I can still play at home, and I find enjoyment in that. And sometimes I'll play with my friends. We'll record on some recording apps on our phones and send it to each other, and then we make music together that way. There still isn't a platform. Zoom, there's always a delay, so you can't play together live on Zoom or FaceTime, or there's just always a delay. And until somebody comes up with a way to improve that, there's just no way you can make
Live
live.
music.
I mean, yeah, you can, but there's just always a delay, and that's frustrating. But there's times where I get tired of it, and I have to put the clarinet down. Sometimes, in the summer we take a vacation and I put the clarinet down for a couple weeks, but then I always come back to it.
Do you feel a new desire to pick it up with vigor, or is it just like, yeah, I need to?
It's usually that or fear of a concert coming up and I have to learn my part.
We were speaking with, as I mentioned, your daughter a moment ago, and her going to be starting her new job, her first job.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
and we were talking about her desires and motivations of doing things in tech and social media. And she seems, from your perspective, to have this motivation, almost similar to you with your instrument when you were younger. Can you see any correlation in how you're versus you were mentioning that there was the idea of her just getting into computers, but she really seems to be going down a certain path. Can you see some characteristics in how you were when you were younger with music for what she's doing now in social media?
Yeah, she's not as focused as I was. I mean, I ate and breathed and slept the clarinet. Okay. When I was in high school and college, I mean, I just in middle school, she's not like that. But when there's something she's passionate about, she'll get focused. She was very focused about finding, well, I actually hounded her. You know, she got the internship and it didn't pay anything. She kept whining that, "Oh, I don't have a job that pays anything." So we were on a walk. It's funny that you asked this. We were on a walk one day and she was a little bit down because she didn't know what she was going to do this summer. And I said, well, I think you need to set a short term goal and a long term goal. I said, in the short term goal, I want you to apply for 3 jobs. Just apply any 3. Just send in your resume and see what happens. If nothing happens, apply for 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
But meet that short term goal. Don't let that go. That's a realistic goal that might take you a couple days, maybe 3 or 4 days. And I said, then let's look at a long term goal. Maybe there's a video or documentary or something you want to produce, edit, design. And maybe that's something that you see yourself doing, working on for the next 4 or 5 months. That's a long term goal. Or we were talking about, you know, this digital media degree, it's only a couple of years. So she's got the time in her schedule to do a double major in the languages. And I mean, Brian, I'm not kidding. She speaks Norwegian. She speaks Japanese. She speaks, you know, she's learning Korean. I'm in an interview. And, okay. And, you know, I think if she combines those digital media skills that she's naturally talented at and she enjoys, she can also incorporate those languages. I mean, these are things that she's very passionate about. And I think when she's passionate about something, then she becomes focused. There were days that I wasn't passionate about clarinet, but I just wanted to continually get better, you know. And as a musician, you're constantly working on your skill. You'll never reach the point where you're like, oh, I made it, I'm done. The minute you do that, it's time to put the instrument away. I will never reach the I have done it, I have mastered my instrument. That will never happen, because it's just a lifelong journey of learning, relearning. um, you know, the Mozart clarinet concerto is, in my opinion, the most difficult piece of music for clarinet. And not because it's technically challenging, but it's so transparent. There is no room for a mistake. The music is so perfectly written and it's so transparent. It's just perfectly written. And any bobble in the music is noticeable. You cannot hide anywhere. Every phrase must be perfectly made.
Before I get into
And that's the
wondering some
challenge.
of you, some of your challenges and stresses, what was your first job? Because your daughter, and I think a free plug for your daughter is she created, what was the name of the website?
Five Doll Stars,
Stars.
plural. She has a YouTube channel, and it's stop motion movies of American Girl dolls. So she has many American Girl dolls. She has a doll apartment in her room where she creates her storylines. She creates her own music. She used to be able to use commercial music, but she can't now. So she comes up with her own music. And she develops a storyline. She has characters. They all have different personalities.
You said
Really
she has like
entertaining.
80 million views or something like that.
That's correct.
So she
150,000 subscribers.
received her first job and will start soon. What was your first job?
My first job was working at a department store. It was a family-owned department store in upstate New York. It was called Panosians, and they sold shoes and men and women and children's clothing. And I made $4.75 an hour. And I started out like in the children's section, and I worked there every summer when I wasn't in, well, I worked there actually, yeah, 3 summers I worked there. There was one summer I actually stayed at school and had a job where I was in college. So, but my first job was at a department store. And honestly, I love them all. I love department stores. I enjoy customer service. I enjoy helping people find what they're looking for, whether it's want or a need. I love helping people achieve a goal or figure out something that they're looking for. One thing you may not know about me is I've been a freelance makeup artist for 22
I saw
years.
that on your Bobby Brown. Is that Bobby Brown makeup? Is that
I worked for Bobby Brown for 18 years, and in the last 3 years, I've worked for Giorgio Armani.
Okay.
And so I've had many
My dear
interesting
wife will love
clients,
you.
but well, as you can see, I'm not wearing any makeup, but I believe in self-care, taking care of oneself, whether that's through physical activity or eating healthy, or making yourself feel better by putting a little moisturizer or a little lip color or something that just enhances your natural beauty. I have had clients, they come to see me and they are just down, depressed, and I'll
A little
be like, well,
makeover.
why don't you sit down? Well, I'll say, why don't you sit down and we'll just play. That's my favorite phrase. Let's just play, And so then I listen to their needs, and like if they want to try something, and I always say, well, makeup's not rocket science. We can always take it off and put something else on if it doesn't work. So, I'm in an interview. Can you go away, please? Thank you.
I say to my family, just go away.
Go away. So anyway, I can never be by myself. It's impossible in this house. But I love that connection. And when you're working with, and it's the same thing with music, a lot of times after concerts, I might have to stand out in front of the auditorium after the show and meet and greet patrons as they come in. And every one of them has a story, and they want to tell you their story. My dad served in the Navy, or my brother was in the Navy, or my grandpa was in World War II. They have a story. And, everybody has a story, right? And you take the time. You take the time and you listen. And but the funny thing is I have many acquaintances in my life, but I can count my dearest friends on one hand. I love my makeup clients. I love my clarinet students, but with my makeup clients, some of them have developed into nice friendships. But the thing about when you're working with, number one, when you're working with makeup, it's like music. It's very personal. But you give that person what they want. You become best buddies in half an hour, an hour. You give them what they want. They go away happy. I'm happy. And the relationship, it's all in that. It's all in a little compartment, right?
Moment, yeah.
In the moment, yes, kind of in the moment. I'm not an impulsive or in kind of person, but I like being in the moment. I think that's a good way of saying it.
Did you
When
have a number of jobs in between joining the Navy? And how did that come about from
no,
selling
I
shoes to the Navy?
the Navy is my first professional job. So I graduated from college in 1993. No, I take that back. 1993. I took a year off. I was trying to decide whether to go to right out of school to go to graduate school, but I decided to work for a year, and I worked for an ophthalmologist, an eye doctor. I was kind of his office assistant, but I would also, he worked mainly with older patients that needed cataract surgery, or, mainly just to help correct their vision as they're aging. And so that's another kind of customer service. Like, I would greet them, I would help them fill out their paperwork, I would help them back to get them seated in a exam room. I would, make sure the doctor had the correct chart. So it was organizational skills, but it was also a lot of personal one-on-one, good morning, how are you? How are you doing today? What brings you in today? Those kinds of things. So I think every job I've had has been kind of like some kind of customer service oriented, dealing with people. I don't mind dealing with people. You see the best and worst of people when you're dealing in a customer service kind of related skill set. And I've had people yell at me and be unfriendly to me. And, the first thing I think is, "Ugh, why are they saying this to me?" The thing, you know what? They may be dealing with something that I have no idea what they're dealing with. And so, the best way to disarm a person like that is to say, "I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. Um, I may not be able to help you get through it, but I'm here today, and you'll be with me for 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe that'll be the best part of your day." You have to turn it around. I think when people lash out, they lash out because they're unhappy and they need to lash out at something,
Someone,
right?
yeah, or something, yes.
Someone, something. And I've seen it happen when I'm doing makeup. I'll have a client that I did a lot of weddings for a while, but my brides they came progressively more, the nice word is, I'll say, is demanding. And I
But
finally felt
also,
like they were,
as you just said, brides are under a lot of pressure,
they are. Yep.
right?
I remember calming one bride down before she went to walk out. She was almost in tears, and I'm sitting there with a tissue trying to blot her, mascara, just trying to help her calm down. But I stopped doing weddings because I didn't want to be that, I won't say like a punching bag, but I didn't want to be the one that was always like, "Okay, everybody keep calm," you know. So, and I do that in my own family. I'm like, when my husband or son or daughter's having a moment or a
Yeah.
function, when my son broke his arm, who takes him to the hospital?
Mom.
Mommy, right? Mom, because they're only times where mom will do. So, you know,
What made you decide to get into the Navy? Did someone approach you? Someone's in your family? You said, "This is how I want to spend the next 25 years."
no, that is not what I thought. So I was in graduate school. After I worked for a year with the eye doctor, I auditioned at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and I was accepted. And I started in the fall of 1994. And I had a great teacher. And in, I guess it was December, he had a flyer in his hand for an audition for the Navy band. And I said, "No, I'm not auditioning for a band. I want to be in an orchestra." And he
Mm,
said, He said, well, you're broke and you're a graduate student and you need a job. He said, you need to go take this audition. And so we spent a good month working on the music. And then I auditioned on January 13th, 1995, which is a Friday. It was Friday the 13th. And they hired two people that day. They hired me and they hired another woman who is now probably she is my best friend in the whole world. I have two my college roommate, and then one of my college friends from marching band. The three of them are like my best friends in the whole world. But I met her on audition day at the Navy band. So
Very nice.
interesting how things work out.
Yeah.
Yep, she left after about 5 years. She developed a shoulder injury, and playing became very challenging for her. So, but she's a very intelligent human being. So she went and became a brewmaster, and she's a brewmaster for Sam Adams in Boston. So I mean, super talented. All my bestest girlfriends, they're just like lawyers and brewmasters and business ladies, and they're so smart and talented.
We lost your camera. Oh, there we are. No, you're good.
Yeah, it says my battery's low. Let me grab my charger. And I'm a musician, so that's okay.
So you passed the audition, and then you said, "Okay, this is how it goes."
Well, I passed the audition. You see me? I'm gonna plug in my
Mm-hmm.
charger. All right. So I auditioned, and then let's talk about. And then you have to go to boot camp. So I
And
I
sorry,
did my second semester.
You're not differentiated, because what I know is you get to stay stateside unless you guys are touring, correct?
Right.
So my question is,
So
are you treated just the same though as other soldiers in boot camp, or is there some?
yes. Oh yeah. No, it was
Same
the same. So
regiment? Yeah.
I accepted the position in January, but I didn't enter boot camp until July because I asked if I could finish out my spring semester at the University of Rochester, and they said yes. So I was able to do a little more schoolwork and study with my teacher and play my graduate recital. And then I went into boot camp July 31st, 1995, and which was also my grandma's birthday. And so that lasted about 9 weeks. And it was like a heat wave in Chicago. So the boot camp is in north of Chicago. It's called Great Lakes. And I went through 9 weeks of basic training. So in basic training, you do a lot of physical activity. The main thing is they instruct you how to work as a team. So you'll have to remember I was 24 when I joined the Navy. And most of the women in my group were 18, 19 years old. And so getting everyone to work together could be a challenge at times. So that was the primary goal. But we moved in formation from where our barracks were to our classrooms, to physical training, to the dining hall. We always moved in formation together. And, when someone made a mistake, then the whole group, of course, had to be, we usually had to do push-ups or whatever. But, it teaches you discipline, it teaches you structure. And I honestly have to say, in my early 20s, I needed structure. So it wasn't a bad thing. And I'll say this, if I can survive basic training, anyone can survive basic training. I got stronger, and I wasn't an athlete by any stretch growing up. But the lifestyle of the Navy, physical activity became a lifestyle change for me. So that was good. I was a little overweight before I went into the Navy, so I had to lose a little weight. And of course, there's a weight standard, so you have to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And so those were all good motivators, you know.
What now, if this was regular time, what would your day consist of, or, a week consist of for you in your
Well,
present job?
today's Monday in June, so we would have a concert at the Capitol, the West Steps of the Capitol, 8 o'clock concert. And then tomorrow night we would have a concert at the Navy Memorial, which is our Pops concert. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would be rehearsals, followed by whatever meetings. Like right now, I'm in the process of writing an award for an individual that I've been assigned to write an award for. So I've been working on that. And I enjoy that because we have so many amazing people in our command that when they receive recognition, you take all of their information, everything that they've done in that time period, and then you have to extrapolate all of that data and then put it into a Navy template for the award. And so you just can't write whatever you want. You kind of have to write it in Navy speak. But I I really make sure I take the time because these people work so hard that you want to make sure they're getting the recognition that they deserve. So you really want to write the award to the best of your ability, and that takes years of practice. So that's what I'm working on actually right now. I'm also on our cloud team, our IT cloud team. So I'm a testing manager for our cloud team. So I test software development. For example, we just digitized our music library. So I had to test certain aspects of it to make sure that the musical titles matched with the call numbers and that the librarian can have the correct access to the data. And that's a new skill I'm learning. The IT computer skill is outside of my comfort zone. Let me tell you. Out, even with Teach Now, all of the Flipgrid, PictoChart, all of that stuff. When we first started
Teach Now, the graduate program that you and I have been doing, which officially ends this week. Yes, that's
yes,
to be a certified teacher in the United States.
I was really on a steep learning curve because I knew nothing about Flipgrid. I knew nothing about these, what is it, Nearpod. I love Nearpod and eMaze, all of these different teaching tools and Google Drive. So Google Drive, before Teach Now, I had a small working knowledge of Google Drive, but I'm an expert now.
There's a lot of stuff. Google has a lot of stuff that's free and relatively easy to use once you start practicing.
Yeah, well, this last project was developing a PBL, and my PBL is Learning to Thrive. I borrowed it from PBL. Yeah, I borrowed it from the PBL Works. So it's already a topic, but basically teaching students, to look at themselves and how do you build a healthy meal? How do what is enough nutrition for their growing bodies at their age or in their gender? What does a seventh grade boy need to eat in a day versus a seventh grade female? And, can you get them if they're, do they understand what a protein and a carbohydrate is? And if you eat a bag of potato chips, if you could replace that bag of potato chips with something a little bit healthier, so you're trying to teach the student. Would be, of course, in health science, but I think it's applicable to any grade band, right? Just general wellness. The one thing that in this pandemic that I've been watching is that a lot of students get their main meals from school. because maybe they don't have enough food at home, so they either get a reduced breakfast or reduced lunch, and um, they they're used to getting a lot of their nutrition from school. And so I this the game sorting thing that we had been talking about, well, it's a food group sorter. So you just take different foods and you sort them out into their rightful food groups, and then you learn how to build a healthy meal, which I've been teaching my kids for years, how to build a healthy meal, and just, you know, self-care. I think I really feel bad for students right now because, school is structured. It's a place of social and emotional learning. Um, it's just like with my job, I can't make music with my colleagues. There's a social and emotional aspect that's missing. And I think a lot of students are feeling that way. I know my daughter's missing her friends. My son is missing his friends. They get together, but physically distant, of course. I know I'm getting off track a little,
No,
but
it's good. That it is
anyway,
very hard. It creates an anxiety within people to be locked up and cooped away and separated from people, even if it's just your normal routine, as I think you did earlier, is just go for a bike ride, right? Something, if someone says, well, you got to do this,
you
there's
know,
some restrictions on it, and that's hard on people.
yeah. Well, and I always tell my kids, go outside, take your sanitizer and your mask, and go outside and be just even for an hour. My daughter's out on a walk right now, and fortunately, we live in an area where there's some nice bike paths or walking paths. Um, and you can just go walk. When I walk, I put on a podcast and I just listen to a podcast. There's not that many people out, and if there is, I wear a neck gaiter so I can just bring it up
Hmm.
over my nose and mouth. I don't feel like wearing a mask is a restriction. I'm doing it to be health conscious, not for myself, but of course for others. But I do, I think there's going to be a lot of mental health issues that come out of this. And, you know, when I become a teacher, I think, I probably won't start teaching until 2021, fall of 2021. But I think mental health is going to be a huge issue. And so one of my goals is, of course, it's difficult to get to know your students. If you have 25 students in a classroom, how do you get to know all of them? But if you can look at them kind of in a holistic way, you know, not all students, of course, have the same backgrounds, socioeconomic status, and you want to make sure every student has an opportunity to learn. And when they come to school, they have, you know, they've had a good meal, or they're ready to learn. And what is that going to look like? When are we going to be able to go back into a classroom and things like that? There's just so many unknowns right now, and I think mental health is going to be a huge component of that. I mean, that's why, again, I'm doing this yoga challenge. There are days where I'm like, okay, what is the rest of the year going to look like? I'm still getting paid, thankfully, and that I'm so thankful and grateful for my job. But then I'm retiring next summer, and then what? I'm going to get a teaching job, and what will that look like? Will I be in a classroom? Will it still be virtual learning? I hope not, but I'm hoping by fall of 2021 that we'll be over the hump, so to speak. But
Since
um,
you mentioned retiring, of which you will be doing, when did you say you're going to kind
June
of,
2021.
and that takes several months to do, does it not? From my,
It,
uh,
yeah, it does.
looking, and you can look back over the years, what was your greatest experience or the joy that brought you out of the work that you have done? I mean, you've accomplished a lot, even just, to be part of making music, making CDs, traveling the world, bringing it to government, to people, and in education. What has been, and it could be as simple as being in a place, doing something with people, meeting someone. What has been the greatest highlight, do you think, of your career in the Navy band?
Well, in 1996, we flew to St. Petersburg, Russia, for the 300th anniversary of the Russian Navy. So we went to St. Petersburg and we went to Kaliningrad, Russia, which was a trip of a lifetime. I mean, I don't know when I'll ever go back to Russia. That was incredible. We used to travel like that more. I've been to Sweden and I've been to Quebec for these military tattoos. We were supposed to go to Norway in April for a military tattoo, which is like a big marching band festival.
Oh, we love the tattoos in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, and then we were supposed to go to a big band conference in Singapore next month, but of course that's canceled. So I'm kind of sorry that I won't be able to do those. I think the band will probably go to Norway next April if all is well. We've been invited back. So I think being able to go to Russia was a highlight. I think the other highlight that I won't forget was 1 month after 9/11, we had to play a ceremonial memorial service at the Pentagon for the victims of the Pentagon crash. And the current president was there, and all of the former presidents were there, and they were sitting in front of the band. It was our band that was playing. There's a YouTube video of the whole service. I encourage you to go look at it sometime. And all of the victims' families were in the front rows of seats. And we played an arrangement of Amazing Grace. And as we played, all of the people who died on that plane, their names scrolled across the screen while we played Amazing Grace. And after that, they had a joint military chorus that sang Battle Hymn of the Republic. And at the end, there's this big fanfare, and as we were playing, you could see people standing up and waving their American flags. And it was this moment of grief and sadness and patriotism. I had never seen anything like it in my life. I mean, it was so emotional. And I remember our boss at the time said, "Now look, everybody, you need to use your decorum to the best of your ability because this is going to be a tough job." And it was the toughest job I've ever done because it was so emotionally difficult. And yet it was so memorable because for a moment you just felt everyone was united. Everyone felt the same way. Everyone felt in that moment the sadness, but patriotism, coming together, grieving together. And that moment made me very sad, but you look at today's current culture and you wish for that kind of unity, you wish for that kind of patriotism that, what was
Draws people
9/11
together,
slogan? Yeah, 9/11 was United We Stand, right? And I felt it. In that ceremony, I just felt it. We all the musicians, we were just astonished, and you don't feel that way in this culture today. And that really breaks my heart because, in a situation like the health crisis we're in, you want people to come together. The slogan is, "You are not alone. We're in this together." I don't feel like we're in it together when I turn on the news. I just see discourse and,
well, that's the thing too. I think is one of the biggest challenges is when we watch the news, we see division, and it's not a statement of sorts. But then if we
Yeah,
realize there's a lot of working people out there just going to work or trying to
yeah,
find work, like we don't see as
trying to find work. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
There's people that just want
or
to take
putting their
care of.
health on the line.
Yeah, very much so.
You know, and every time I go into the grocery store and I have to buy food or the pharmacy, I make sure I thank the person who's helping me,
Yep.
you know, because they're a frontline worker
Hmm.
and they're going in, maybe they have to, or maybe they want to, but I always try and thank them because what they're doing is they're putting themselves at more risk of being in a public place like that, you know. When I went on my bike ride, I had my neck gaiter so that I don't, you know, I took my whole family's been tested and we're all negative, but doesn't matter. I still wear my neck gate, my protective gear
Hmm.
because I'm trying to be respectful of
Yep.
people.
Yep.
And a
Agree.
lot of people, a lot of people are hurting either because of the health crisis or because of the negative historical, um, what's going on with our culture of
Well,
discrimination.
from highlights of your career to difficulties and stresses, because there's lots of stresses with that's going on, and there's no doubt about that. But about
Yeah.
you, um, what can you see were some of the biggest difficulties that you had to face, or things that challenged you in your career, and how they bleed off into other parts of life? But what was some of your biggest challenges, or the biggest challenge?
Um, for President Obama's first inaugural, it was about 25 degrees, and we were outside for about 12 hours. And I remember it's just physically a hard day, and um, it was just really hard because that was so cold.
Sorry, yeah, because I was going to say something, but I didn't know if it was appropriate. But you said when you went to the Pentagon to play that your boss instructed you to put on your best face. So if is it you're not allowed to show I mean, I understand like you're a team, you're united, and is it because when you're talking about being 25 Fahrenheit, right? 25 degrees Fahrenheit, like
Mm-hmm.
you need to, as you mentioned at the outset, your uniform has to be intact. You guys, you're not allowed to like bend around and move. Like you are a team united. So whether you want to cry or you want to like move around a little bit to warm up your toes or something, it that is not seen, right? Like that, your true feelings that you have to mask it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's obviously a difficult challenge.
Well, part of our job is to promote impeccable military bearing because we're in the public eye and we represent the Navy. You see us on TV, we're representing the Navy, and we have to have impeccable military bearing. It doesn't mean that we're uncaring. It means that we are honoring our service. We're honoring
Can
our
you
Navy.
define that for me, just because it's not familiar? Impeccable military bearing. I think I could put the words together, but what does that mean?
It means that your uniform is beyond reproach. It's creased properly. It's ironed properly. Your shoes are shined. Your shirt is ironed. Your hair is, properly maintained. Your uniform fits properly. Um, and there's a crispness about your uniform, if that makes sense. It's very sharp. You
And even
see
your
a person in uniform with their
movements,
medals or
and even
the
your
movements are
movements.
sharp. Right,
Yes.
right. But we're not unfeeling when one of actually the most important ceremony we do is funerals at Arlington Cemetery. We call them full honors funerals at Arlington Cemetery, and they, that's where we're laying to rest are service members, and you want to be your very best. You want to be, and we're out there, whether it's raining or it's hot or snowing, we're out there. But, you know, when you're playing and those families are there, you know, it, it's so important. And when you make the music, you do it to the best of your ability, because that's the last thing the family gets before, you know, their loved one is laid to rest. And
What do you think
there,
about? Go ahead. You go ahead.
I can't stress the importance of um, being able to do that. You know,
What do you think
it
people outside of the experience that you have, whether it's a soldier or a band member, a Navy band member, what do people not get about a position that you hold or have held? What do people just not understand? That
that
you're
it's
like
my
that.
full-time job. It's my full-time job. I'll get asked, "Is that all you do?" It is, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I could be honest.
You
If I
know.
saw you playing, like, okay, where's your tank? You know, like, you know, or your ship or something. I could see that
Well, we
first
do have a
reaction.
lot. We do have musicians stationed in war zones over in the
Yeah.
Middle East. Some in the Army field bands or Marine field bands, Air Force. We have Navy fleet bands in Japan, in Italy. Um, so I mean, there are musicians stationed all over the world. Actually, the Army is the largest employer of musicians, but military musicians are stationed all over the world and in combat zones
See,
at times.
I think people, and I think this is the root of many issues that people have about work. And you mentioned when you go shopping, the checkout person to say thank you to, and now just someone might not understand that you don't only play an instrument. You know, I mean, you do play an instrument, but it's not just that. And it's a full-time job, but there's a lot to it. So can you maybe elaborate better than I can about how important it is to understand the importance of everyone's job? And your job, although we could look at you, oh, look how prim and proper. When she's done that, she's gonna, you know, go to a real job. But understanding like the checkout person, yourself, you know, a fighter pilot, a person who does makeup, and even some of the experiences you have, jobs are jobs and work is work. And it is quite difficult for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, um, there are times where I'm so cold I can't feel my fingers on my instrument, um, or it's so hot that my uniform is like plastered to my, you know, my shoulders and back, and um, you know,
Is it
we work
stressful?
in
Is it stressful for you to go and to perform for anyone, but when things are, you know, you know, at the Pentagon, is that a stressful thing that you're going through?
the only thing when I'm playing at the Pentagon and I'm in formation, the only thing I worry about is if my toes get numb. Like I sometimes our drum major will ask us to flex our knees, because some people can fall out on a ceremony, and that goes for anybody that is in a formation. It doesn't have to be a musician; it can be
Hmm.
anyone. When you're standing for a long period of time, you don't
Circulation, yeah.
lock your knees. Yeah, circulation. You know, I've had to stand in attention or a parade rest for a long periods of time. That gives me anxiety because sometimes when we play at a White House arrival and you're in a formation and you can't move, you might be a parade rest, but you still can't wiggle around too much. And also for those kinds of jobs, you might go hours without eating or drinking something, and so you have to plan when you're going to eat, when you're going to drink, when you're going to use the restroom before you. I mean, it might be a 2-hour ceremony, so you want to make sure you don't drink too much. You make sure you go to the ladies' room before this, you get into formation. There's all these things you have to think about, right? Because you have to make sure you have enough nutrition so you can get through a 2-hour ceremony where you're physically the job. In the job description, it does say it's a physically demanding job. And I'm retiring next year, but it is a young person's job, in my opinion. You have to have the stamina to be able to stand there for long periods of time. I mean, and not just a musician, but any member in the military that's doing these ceremonies. Our troops, our ceremonial troops, stand out there longer than we do. And so I'm sure they have to take all kinds of precautions of, how much nutrition do you feed your body and hydration before you go out there and do a ceremony like that. It's taxing physically on the body. And then you have the mental anxiety of, did I eat enough? Oh, I hope I didn't drink too much because I hope I don't have to go to the bathroom while the ceremony is going on, because you can't leave your formation. So, I mean, those are, and that's indirectly.
You don't get any, yeah, I need to take a break. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
You don't get those.
But you know what? That's indirectly filtered into my family life, because if we go on a road trip, I make sure I'm the snack lady. I've become the snack lady. I have every kind of snack known to man when I travel. My kids make fun of me, but being in this position, I've learned when to snack, how much to snack, how much nutrition do I need. You better, go to the ladies' room before you get in the car for that road trip. There may not be a rest area for 100 miles, but it's indirectly, even my daughter said, your habits in your job have kind of crept into your family life. So,
You'll know that's true when they start saluting you.
Right. But, those are the things you don't see. Those are just the things. You might see us on TV looking pretty, but the things you don't see is the preparation it takes. And, or if you're that person working the cash register at the grocery store, you get a 15-minute break, right? And to go, I mean, maybe you can say, hey, I need to go use the ladies' room and come back. But, you're standing there for hours checking people out and trying to sanitize. I mean, I might see the checkout person for 5 minutes, but they're standing there for hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a smile on their face, or helping you out, and they have to prepare as well. It's like what you see on the outside doesn't always reflect what's going on, what a person has done on the inside to prepare. Kind of like a music performance. If you're standing up soloing in front of an orchestra and you look at the person soloing, you're like, wow, that's amazing. That sounds lovely. And the soloist on the inside is like, oh my gosh, all these people are out in the audience and they're staring at me. Isn't it funny? Like what you
Perspective,
see.
yeah.
Perspective. Yeah. I mean,
is there any advice that you have for just workers in general, or even people wanting to get into music, or maybe even to a Navy band, or just workers in general from your experience? Because you mentioned earlier about you were talking to your daughter and saying, some short-term and some long-term goals, and especially if people are discouraged, inexperienced. I mean, your daughter mentioned when we were talking earlier that she applied for 50 jobs before she got her first job.
15.
Was it 15?
15, sorry.
But even still, at 19, first time looking for a job and doing based on your advice, like just go throw out some resumes, and she didn't get too distraught over getting rejected or not a call back
Yeah.
from the first ones. So do you have any advice for people to encourage people to work, to unite? And as you mentioned about how in the Pentagon, you wish people were more united, and it doesn't seem united. I think work is something that unites us, whether directly or
It does.
indirectly.
I mean, I definitely feel like, my colleagues and I, we want to be more united. And how do we do that? We do that by coming together and making music. And we feel united even with the music that we're sending in to our sound engineers. I mean, we look at it and we're like, wow, we did that. That's awesome. What I would say is, be kind to others that cross your path. If you're on time, you're late. That's the big one. That's the one thing with my daughter I have to kind of massage her about is if you have to be there at 7 a.m., be there at 6:45.
Yeah, I always like
If you're on time,
if you're not 10 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late.
right? If you're on
15
time,
works.
you're late. That's be prepared when you're walking in the door. Before you walk out on the sales floor in the grocery store, you walk out into rehearsal. Be prepared. Have your correct uniform on. Have your daily schedule ready. Have your part prepared. Don't just walk in and do it on the fly. Be prepared. I mean, you wouldn't walk into a courtroom as a lawyer unprepared. You would be super prepared, right? You wouldn't walk into a surgery as a surgeon being, oh, just mosey on in here after a night of partying. It's how you conduct yourself away from your job. If you're just looking for a job and you're preparing a resume, have a friend look at your resume and get some critical feedback. I've done that. I have a business resume, I have a music resume, and I have a teaching resume. I have 3 resumes. And that was suggested to me by a friend because he said, you're a professional musician, so you need a music resume. You're a teacher, so you need a teaching resume. And you're an executive or you're in a leadership role, so you need a business resume. So, I have 3, and I constantly have to go in and update them. I would say, be confident in your skills. If you know you're good at something, then make sure, I'm not saying be overly confident, but, know that you're good at what you do. And if you're not, get better at it. And that could be free online work or free online classes or tutorials or teach now certification, things that I'm always I'm the forever learner. I like to learn and I'm always setting goals. I love the idea of a short-term and long-term goal because a short-term goal should be reachable, obtainable, realistic, and done in a fairly reasonable amount of time. And then a long-term goal, and it can be a stretch goal. It can be, I'm going to train for a marathon, and I'm going to do one next year. That's a stretch, right? It's doable, but it might be a stretch. So, I'm doing that with myself. What is my short-term goal? My short-term goal is to serve out my final year in the Navy, enjoy it, and retire. My son will graduate from high school, and then look to start a new chapter with a new career. And my long-term goal is to decide whether I want to stay in the area where my children are going to college, or do I want to look at retiring in another state, or, so there's short-term and long-term goals. Do I want to pay my house off in 10 years? Do I want to, those kinds of things. Do I want to buy a house? Those are long-term goals. They might be financial, they might be health goals, but I'm a big believer in, because a short-term goal will make you feel like you've accomplished something. Jolie applied for 3 jobs and she felt like she accomplished something. And she applied for those jobs in 2 days. You know, she's like, I did it. And I'm like, well, how do you feel? And she's like, I feel good. I'm like, great. Now, now fill out, now fill out 3 more applications. You know, so I'm a big advocate of goals, but they don't all have to be the same kind of goals. You know, I started a goal of a 30-day challenge of doing yoga every day. It doesn't have to be hard yoga. It just has to be something where I can sit and meditate and quiet my mind for a little while.
And I think for people who do not do this, it seems complicated in a sense, but I like, lists of things to do. So all you're doing is taking things that you have to do, or you must do, or you like to do, and you're just separating it into what would be a longer and shorter term goal, just things that you know that would be good for you to do, or things that you have to do. So it's not so unattainable. It's a reachable thing that it keeps you on track.
Right. You know, I would like, my long-term goal, which would be great, would be to get a university teaching job. That is a goal that I think is realistic. It might take a little while. And after that, if I can't teach at the university level, my next goal would be to teach in a secondary school, middle school or high school. But I'm developing I have the skill set for the university higher ed learning, but those jobs only come open few and far between, right? Maybe there's 4 or 5 in a year, whereas, developing my skills to become a teacher, I can teach in middle school or high school, and with Teach Now, I can have that state reciprocity. So if I wanted to move to a different state, I could get a teaching certificate in that state. And, I took the music content exam. I'm going to be taking the math and science content exam because I want my options. Math is a critical area and science is a critical area. And, music right now the arts are kind of taking it on the chin at the moment, but it will come back. So,
Laura, 2 things and then a final question. Where can people find you if they would like to find you? You mentioned your yoga challenge. You're a cosmetician. Is that the right word? Cosmetician? Beautician?
Makeup artist.
Yes, makeup artist. Where could people find you if they wanted to find you? And would you like to add anything else before my final question? Is there anything else you would like to say?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Laura Grantier, and I'm on Instagram, and my name is just Laura Grantier.
That's IER, yes.
IER. You can also find me on Facebook. On Facebook, I usually post either about food, kids, travel, or music. So, or makeup. Sometimes I post about what's the best moisturizer to use or sunscreen. So those are my 3.
Your social media, your daughter may get you doing some other things too.
I have a YouTube channel of clarinet music, but it's kind of restricted. So you got to see it.
Because you sent
it. Or you got to hear it.
You gave us a little, little taste. Is there anything you'd like to? Go ahead.
That wasn't intentional. I think I just didn't know how to make the link.
Well, I also saw you were interviewed once, and I saw a couple of the videos, and I showed my family, and I'm like, I'm in class with this girl. She meets presidents, and she's like, yeah, I've been into the White House, so many times, and it doesn't really matter. I'm like, this.
Oh, it matters.
It's kind of like.
It always matters.
It matters in the sense that you've done it so many times. It's like, we haven't even been to to Washington. Is there anything else you would like to add? And also in that, could you answer why you work? So whether you're playing or teaching or beautifying someone, why do you do the things you do, and any other words of wisdom from Laura?
I think working gives you a sense of self-worth. I don't know where I would be if I wasn't working, either working towards a goal or, obviously I work in my job so that I can have a salary to live. I told my daughter, I said, if you can clothe yourself and put a roof over your head and have health care and all of the, if you can do, these are real world things that you need to be able to do. And that's a reason why we work, is to be able to respond to those real world obligations. And they are obligations. We have to eat, we have to wear clothing, we have to have a roof over our heads, we have to have a doctor to go see if we get sick. These are things that are basic needs, right? So we have to have a way to have those needs, which is one reason why we work. So that's one reason. Again, another reason why I work is because I enjoy it. It gives me a sense of accomplishment. It gives me a sense of belonging. I'm sure not everyone loves their job.
Mm-hmm.
I love my job probably 95% of the time. I'll never have a job like this again when I retire. I just won't. It's just too few and far between. So I'm incredibly thankful for this job and what it has given me. I've been in the Navy over half my life, so working and being on a team. I love being on a team. I don't need to be a standout, but I love being on a team, and when that team is firing on all cylinders and it does something great, you're a part of something bigger than yourself.
I agree. That's and that transcends all disciplines, right? Even if you're the checkout person, like if you're in a good team, and
Yeah.
like I see like at Costco seems to do what they do pretty well from what I see, not working there, but people seem pretty laid back. They get to wear their own clothes, and they seem right. There's difficulties, but no matter where you are in the spectrum of jobs, if it's a professional team, a sports team, working in a school with the administration, if you're
Yeah.
able to have some colleagues that you can talk to and share things with and accomplish something together, that is a really big benefit or aspect of working.
And working on a team where you have a good leader. I think leadership, there's a reason why there's so many leadership courses, trainings, because if you don't have a good leader, then it's possible you won't enjoy your job. For example, my husband is an academic advisor for one of the universities here in the area, and his boss is amazing. She's a lot younger, but she's so laid back, and I hear them on conference calls, and I'm like, I want to work for her.
I was going to say, maybe he can get you a job.
Yeah, I know. I said, yeah, I want to, yeah, I'll let me have a job too. I mean, when you have someone that you
Yeah.
enjoy working for, my boss is a great example. His first concern for all of us is our safety. He will not compromise our safety, which is why we're not going into work right now. We are sending in our musical recordings because he's concerned about our safety. And I appreciate that. He's concerned about not just me, but my family. So I think, before that, my husband had a university job where he didn't have a good boss, and he was miserable.
Yep.
So I'm really thankful that he found this job that he has now. Doesn't pay as much, but it pays enough that he's happy, and he has great people that he works with, and he's on a great team. And I think that can kind of supersede. He was willing to take the pay cut to be on a
Absolutely.
good
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
you know. So it's a balancing act of why we work.
Well, Laura, I truly appreciate your time. It's getting late for you, I'm sure, and we've been on here for a while. I did the first time I looked at the time, it didn't really seem like 2 hours and maybe a half because we were talking for a little bit before this. But I truly appreciate you coming on here. You're a great person to know, and I've enjoyed working with you as well.
Oh, I've enjoyed. You have been a lifeline in our Teach Now classroom. I really appreciate it, and I hope we will continue to learn from each other. So I'm so glad that I did this certification, because I met people like you, and I think we've had good instructors, and I just liked everyone in our class. But I
Yeah.
think you and I worked on some projects together where I learned a lot. So it's great. So
Good.
thanks, Brian.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your family's patience with allowing me to take you away for a couple of hours. And
That's all
uh,
right.
tell your daughter to check out those things. I think that would be encouraging to her and as you as well. And don't be afraid to open up your YouTube channel to people so they can see what you do and the work that you have accomplished. Don't be shy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, well,
I
people always
appreciate
leave
it, but I'm
comments.
not going to do that.
Well, some people don't leave nice comments about one's
Oh,
artistic.
listen now. Get your daughter to watch Gary V.
Yeah, I
No one's gonna
will.
like you, right? Not everyone's gonna like you, and it doesn't matter,
This
right?
is true.
Just like
You're
don't
right.
use that as a fuel to drive you to do better, and to maybe some criticism is accurate. But I mean, at home,
Absolutely.
people don't like me at home, so why should I expect the whole world to like me? Not saying they don't love
There
me,
you
but
go.
they don't always like me. So yes, Laura,
Yeah.
stretch out. You have talent that, and especially you can't buy your CD. So how are they gonna ever know? Maybe you can come up with your own. Your
Um,
daughter will produce your CD for you.
Maybe she'll make me a retirement video. Maybe I can.
There you go. That's her
That
next
can be a
project.
project for her. Her next project. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Well, thank you
all
very
right,
much. I
Brian. Thank you.
appreciate the time, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Sounds good. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And this was BrianVee at Whywework, and you can find us on any social media out there. Take care.